Welcome to Disconnected. Jeff Buys Cars has got a great channel. We watch quite a few of his videos. A really good source of information. However, this video here I would like to put a few comments on, and I don't want to be kind of dismissive because I think he does a great job of explaining certain things. But I think there's a few issues with some of the things that happen in this video, which I'd like to put my 2 pence in.
Says, I smell a rat. He picked an EV with the equivalent of 400 horsepower and then charged it as cluelessly as possible. I could counter that by picking up a 400 horsepower diesel and finding the dearest garage at $1.99 a litre and putting it up against a frugal 5 miles per kilowatt EV and claim victory for the EV. Equally as absurd. I don't think you could, Gaza. I really don't. Also, look at the kind of EVs that people want to buy. They don't want frugal 5 miles per kiwi. Kiwi? There's no Kiwis involved in this. They don't want frugal, little, economical EVs. They want giant SUVs that could do 0 to 60 in half a second. What are they stealing? Rail Crane says, I just checked on GridWatch and I find that only 50% of electricity generated at present is made using fossil fuels. Only 25% is renewable energy, 5% of that is biomass, felled trees from Canada, 12% is nuclear, and the rest is imported through interconnectors. So, to claim you're helping save the planet with zero emission is completely false. 25% is renewable energy, 5% of that is biomass, which is pulling trees down. So your 100% environmentally friendly electric car is only charged by 20% of actual green energy. The narrative's falling apart, isn't it? Alan Sick.
Right, so this is the part which is important to challenge. So yeah, obviously, when you have an electric car, you've got to charge it off the grid. The grid, depending on where you are in the world, is either completely fossil or completely renewable or mix smash, or it is whatever. And you are actually using the grid. However, saying that is then means that you're not being green is not being entirely realistic of the whole issue. So, number one, you have to understand how a grid is made up, right? How electricity is generated for a country. And I've actually covered this before, but I deleted it, and I wanted to make a separate specific video about it, but I thought that this is probably a good time to mention it. So this is, many people go on about this, like, oh, I've got an EV, but it's charged by coal, because we're burning coal to charge it. Well, yeah, you are, but you are not adding on top of the coal that you're burning by burning fossil fuels in your car. You're not burning diesel and you're not burning petrol. See, the problem with this whole argument is that when you are running a country with electricity, you have no choice, by the nature of how electricity needs to be created, is you have to create a certain amount. You can't really create electricity on demand. You can't say, well, okay, I'm going to create 60% during the day and then 80% during the evening when all the people switch on their TVs and put their cookers on, and then we'll switch it. We'll burn less fuel. We'll burn less coal again in the evening later on when everybody goes to bed. It doesn't work like that. The way that electricity is created is you've got massive turbines spinning up, and they have to spin, and they take literally, I kid you not, I've been on a tour of a nuclear power plant, one not far from my house, and to sidetrack here, if you have a facility where you can go on a tour of a power plant, do it, because it gives you a massive insight and a really cool insight. Now, I was lucky enough to have a tour of a nuclear power plant, and it was a massive eye-opener, both from how interesting and safe actually nuclear power is, and how it is literally one of the greenest and safest electricities to produce. But also they also explain how the grid is set up in the UK, not just Scotland, not just Wales, but actually in the UK. So what happens is, you cannot just create power on demand. You can't spin that turbine faster and slower as you wish, as you need to create power. No, that spindle has to go at top speed all the time. And when you want to switch it off, it takes 30 days to stop spinning. Right? So the point I'm trying to make is like a country doesn't create electricity on demand. It has to create over and above what is possibly needs to be utilized, so that there's always enough power there on demand. Now, UK is slightly different because in the Highlands of Scotland there are 300 hydro plants, and they are basically used as batteries. So in the UK, we do kind of produce electricity on demand, in the sense that the general power plants, they run all the time, like the gas and the coal ones, and the nuclear ones, they run all the time, and they deliver, I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say 70% of the electricity. Then in the evening comes and people switch on their ovens and the grid needs more, then they open the sluices of the hydro dams, and however many they need to open up, and they then create that additional electricity. And during the times when usage by the public or by the country is low, then they will use electricity to pump the water back up the pipes into the dams for the hydro plants. So that's why I mean they kind of use like batteries in a way. Now in Scotland, for example, we produce near to 100% renewables very often during the year. Because we've got so many wind farms and we've got so much opportunity for renewable electricity. So that is one of the reasons why this is not an issue. If your country produces 100% power requirement, right, and you then fill up your car with electricity. When you charge your car, when you charge your batteries, you are essentially using electricity that is already being created. They're not burning more gas for you or more coal for you so you can charge your battery. That is electricity which, in essence, the burning of that fossil fuels, let's say it was all done with fossil fuels, that is already being created. And essentially, if you didn't use that, you could argue that you're actually wasting that gas and coal. So I'm just using that as an example now. So you're not adding to the problem per se. The other thing that people forget is that we are going greener and greener and greener all the time. Especially in Europe and in Scotland, for example, more and more and more electricity is created by greener means. That means that you are, number one, not adding to the problem by burning fuel. If you drive a combustion engine, so you're not adding to the environmental problems by burning fuel or diesel. You're not adding more carcinogenics into the air. You're not adding more CO2 and CO into the air. Particles, all these things are not happening. Okay, so the idea that this kind of like soundbite, oh look, but I'm charging up my vehicle with fossil fuel anyway. That logic doesn't work. That electricity has already been created, and you are using it, and you are not additionally burning, right? There are other arguments about the batteries, and I know that in this video it's going to come up later. There are other issues around EVs, like how they're built, what happens to the old cars, dirty batteries. All these issues, they are completely valid, but this is one issue which needs to be cut out of the argument because it isn't an argument.
Six says, good article, but in your summation you didn't mention what long-term toll the fuel anxiety would have on you. That's a good point. If you're constantly stressed about fuel anxiety, it's going to lower your life expectancy.
Hold on. With the price of fuel, people have that same anxiety when their tank's going low. I know I have it all the time now. Thank you very much. If I put £20 in my car and I don't do a lot of driving, I don't even get a week out of it, and it's causing me anxiety because I literally have to fuel all the time. There's no difference there because it's a cost thing and it's just expensive now.
Alan goes on, a few other issues. The increased weight of EVs is more damaging to roads. No debate on that. It's true. The carbon footprint of EVs
I'm not so sure about that one because... So I was in Texas for a week last year, and it was hilarious to see the insanely big cars that I would say 80% of them were driving. I mean, these were 3 to 3.5 ton vehicles that all of them were driving. And the same complaint now goes to EVs, which are around that same weight, right? So they're not actually that different depending on where you live. Now, if you lived in Scotland, you've got all these rural roads and everybody's driving with 3.5 ton vehicles on them. Okay, fair enough. But actually, the main complaints came from folk in the States going, oh, we need to check if our roads can deal with the heavy EVs, while they're literally driving 3 to 4 ton pickup trucks when they don't need one, like nearly all of them. So, I mean, come on, that's a bit of a nice try.
Manufacture is far worse than internal combustion engine vehicles. Correct. Even according to Volvo, when using the Avril global energy supply, a C40 recharge will need to cover 68,300 miles before it breaks even with a petrol car. This doesn't take into account the batteries are non-recyclable or the human cost of children and adults working in cobalt mines, coming onto that in a minute, in inhumane conditions, something the EV zealots overlook. Absolutely, Alan, 6, you are spot on. So if you're planning on buying a brand new Volvo C40 and you're going to lease it for 3 years, great. You are at no point doing the planet any good. Right, Master Barlow says...
So I can't agree more. That is, we all know this is true. But the problem with this rationale is that this is not an argument against EVs. This is an argument against how we treat people, where we source our products from, how our big corporations that make these, how they operate, how they are happy to do this, to go into some very poor country and basically abuse their poverty to get the stuff. It is a much bigger social argument, and it is not an argument against EVs. It is an argument about us as a society, our politics, what we want from this world, how we want to treat others, where we want the world to go. And you also can't use that argument against EVs while at the same time you're running around with laptops and mobile phones which use exactly the same batteries that have been produced in exactly the same way. When you buy your new iPhone every time it comes out, you are not in a position to complain about somebody who uses an EV because of how the batteries were sourced. It doesn't work. So if you want to be against EVs, then throw away your mobile phone. Throw away nearly every single item that you now have which is rechargeable, because they all run on lithium batteries. So there you go. I mean, come on. This is not an argument against EVs. This is a social, political, economical, capitalist argument, if any.
Ignore the range. Fully charged, my van says 210, but I rarely get more than 140 miles out of it, only around 100 if I go on the motorway. That's the funny thing about these EVs as well. My diesel car is better on the motorway because it's using less power. The EVs seem to be worse. Smoke Hill, just don't do it. This is an automotive cul-de-sac for woke people who want to show they are doing their bit by virtue signalling. The bottom is falling out of the market, and if you need a new battery, you might as well set fire to it. Great comment, Smoke Hill. Some of them set fire to themselves, so you don't need to worry so much about that. And then I got a couple of great comments to conclude from Mrs. Skeptical. Friends in the USA are getting very worried about the recycling costs. Dead batteries are still toxic and disposal costs are high because the technology doesn't exist. Cars with dead batteries are almost unsaleable due to the cost of replacing the batteries. They reckon it costs a fortune in carbon and cash to go electric green. Also, my friend travelling from Sheffield to North Devon before Christmas in his Porsche Taycan had an electric charge stop in Bristol area.
Yeah, I don't think any of these things are arguments against EVs. They are arguments against... They are really arguments against the things that we still need to do to make this a viable option. Because obviously these are facts. I'm not going to dispute that in any shape or form, but I don't think that they are arguments against EVs, but they are economic arguments. I suppose, like anything, the more people that use EVs, the more these things will be solved, because there will suddenly be an economic reason to solve those issues. I don't know. That's just my thought. It seems to me like a lot of these comments are, they're not wrong. There's no argument there, but I don't think that they're an argument for the right thing. I don't think there should be an argument against EVs. There should be an argument for making this infrastructure better. If somebody wants to drive an EV, I would like an EV, and I completely understand all the problems I'm going to be facing with one. But I would like it to be comfortable. I'd like to have charging points. I'd like the charging to be fairly easy. I would like to know where, that some poor kid isn't dying of cancer by the age of 10 because because he had to source materials for my lithium battery. But anyway, that's just me. Maybe I'm too woke sometimes. Anyway, thanks you for watching. Comments down below as always. Ta.